Hello and welcome to the Serpent Temple podcast. This is another weekly review. This week we're going to be looking at an old prog album by the band Rare Bird. The album is called Rare Bird. It was released in 1969. The second is going to be the fantastic album by Carbon, which is Meta, released in 2016. And the most recent banger by the band Frontiera, called Oxidized, released in 2021. So Floyd, what did you think of Rare Bird?
So one thing I thought was kind of interesting. So the album's called Rare Bird.
It is.
The band's Rare Bird.
It is.
The album cover is what I presume to be some sort of Phoenix-style Rare Bird.
Yes.
Right? Do you know so I'm going somewhere with this.
Yeah.
Do you know the bird on the album cover looks like Ho-Oh from Pokemon?
It does. Do you know where that comes from?
No.
So mythologically, there are like mythological birds from Asia and Japan and China. That's a Silk Road thing. So in Iranian mythology, you have Simorgh, which is like this mythical bird with many colored wings that is magical and like looks after like some hero who. Long story. I'm not going to give you the whole Shahnameh. But yeah, that's the Rare Bird. Then you've got like the Japanese equivalent, which is Ho-Oh. And yeah, they're all related. So if you go along the Silk Road, you'll get these rare bird mythologies.
So there is actually some connection there.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, Ho-Oh is a real thing.
Oh, there you go. So we've got Steve Gold on lead vocals, bass and rhythm. He was born in Battersea as well, which I thought was quite interesting.
Nice, round the corner-ish.
Yeah, they've just expanded the Northern Line to stop at Battersea Power Station now as well. There's a big new flashy station there.
So all those expensive flats going to have their own train platform.
Yeah, I think so. Because I think the power station's not in use anymore, isn't it? They're converting it into... I had my sports day in Battersea Park, actually. It's a good park.
No way.
Yeah, it's got a giant Buddha in there as well. It's kind of cool.
That's pretty sick. I like that.
Yeah, that's some Battersea facts there for anyone. And you got David Caffanetti.
Good name.
On piano and assorted keyboard. I think he plays the electric piano on this, which is largely the substitute for a lot of the kind of lead guitar lines, or where a lot of the lead guitar lines would be. You've got Graham Field on organ and assorted keyboard, and then Mark Ashton on drums and backing vocals. And I'm presuming Mark Ashton is the one that does all the kind of falsetto vocals.
I think so. Yeah, because the main vocals are not falsetto-y at all.
No.
Yeah.
It's quite good vocals. I remember when we were talking about reviewing this, you said that apparently, and from a lot of reviews I read online as well, they were saying that the vocals can be a bit of an acquired taste. But I quite liked them. There's one track in particular where I actually thought they were quite haunting, really. It's called You Went Away.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, so the chorus was really quite like haunting and kind of like rousing. And it's quite a strange album, because I feel like you've got, on one half, you've got some tracks that are kind of poppy.
Yeah.
Kind of like bouncy, like the track Time. Or Times, I should say. But then other tracks are really like quite, like they're quite deep and and I really enjoy like the kind of dueling sort of keys that are going on, like the battles between the organ and the
assorted keyboard.
Yeah, and it's just absolutely it's quite good musically, and then the drums as well. Like this, it's quite jazzy. I find there's a lot of sections where they're kind of jamming out, and the drums are just proper feel heavy. But no, it's quite a good album. I really enjoyed it.
It's a proper 1969 album. You've got that classic kind of Mellotronic feel with, like you say, the dueling keyboards. The vocals sound like a sad pirate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's got this like rich, full-bodied, mellow voice, which is full of sadness and hauntedness.
Like Captain Jack Sorrow.
Yeah, it's just got a sad, salty voice.
Shit.
That was
terrible.
Get the plank. Yeah, no, I enjoy that. Yeah, it's a really. I found this band when I heard "Beautiful Scarlet," which is my favorite song on the album. I think the vocals are the best on that song because he just sounds genuinely really sad.
Yeah.
And I like that. There's a lot of songs about him being sad about girls. You've got like Melanie and You Went Away. Just lots of stuff about girls, I guess. I hope it wasn't a bird pun in that respect. When they name the album, I'm going to go for the mythological route. But there's definitely like a sense of loss in this that I think works really interestingly. It's like what loss felt like, what breaking up with your girlfriend felt like in 1969, I guess.
Yeah. I've basically kind of picked up on a lot of similar vibes there. I've got written down here that I felt that it's got quite a strong sense of melody, but there's definitely like an undercurrent of pain and sorrow.
Yeah.
And a lot of the lyricism and the way the vocals are delivered, and even the music a lot of the time. I actually really like the last track as well, God of War. I think that had a bit of a different flavour to the rest of the album. Had some cool kind of like war drum style percussion, and then some nice like harmonised vocals as well. Yeah, it kind of reminded me a bit of The Doors. Like, I don't know if that was just because with the organ and all the keys, because that was quite a common trope of a lot of like the Doors songs, how they would have. And it's even a similar kind of structure in the sense that you would have like the first part of the song would be kind of like poppy or have like a verse chorus style thing, and then the second part would then descend into something like a bit more kind of chaotic, and kind of like jazz friendly.
I think that was quite a trope during that time. I don't know enough to know if the Doors were the first to do that, but I do feel like that's quite that's something I do like about this kind of music, and I do think that has to an extent carried over into some metal, where you do have like a unified first half and then it goes fucking crazy, which I think we all enjoy.
Yeah, no, it's just kind of even like the Hashashin album we reviewed last time. I felt like that had at times had that similar kind of old school prog vibe where it would just build and build and then just eventually crescendo into just a flurry of notes and just a bit of a cacophony at time. But it's funny you mentioned Beautiful Scarlet being your favourite track. I actually had that noted down as my favourite track as well. And it's funny, when I was listening to it, because obviously I've never listened to this band before, I wasn't familiar, but there was times from a compositional perspective and some of the notes that we're using really reminded me of some Leprous tracks.
Oh, that's so interesting.
So it's cool because for once I'm listening to a 70s album and I'm not thinking, oh, this sounds like Opeth. So it reminded me of another
Opethy band.
Yeah, another Opethy band. But yeah, no, it reminded me of Leprous at times. I was thinking, I wonder if Leprous have taken any cues or are fans of this music or music from this era at all. Because I would never have made that connection really prior to listening to that track. Yeah.
I would not be surprised. Often if you poke a metal musician hard enough, there'll be some 70s prog that falls out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not that I recommend doing those things.
Or prodding musicians.
Prodding. Yeah. And musicians.
Just prodding in general.
Prodding in general. Yeah. Avoid musicians too, I would say, personally. But yeah, one of these songs, so the albums that these guys released, they released 5 albums between 69 and 74, which is not bad.
Pretty prolific.
Yeah, very common in that era because people would just get thrown into the studio for 12 hours, they'd churn something out and then they'd throw it into the ether. Not quite as simply as that, but you know what I mean. It was like really common back then. Sometimes actually bands would turn up to the studio and not even know what they were going to be playing in pop music. So they'd just turn up and I think they'd be given the music, then they'd play it, and then they'd release it. It wasn't until the Beatles, which was obviously before this, that bands would go to the studio with their own music.
Yeah.
And I think Pink Floyd as well, they kind of pioneered that kind of thing too. So before then it was like very factory-like.
Yeah, do you know what? That's something I only kind of really realised somewhat recently because like I remember watching this YouTube video and it was like a compilation of like old songs and versus the original versions. Like even like say the Clash, I Fought the Law, like there was a version before that, I can't remember who by, but so many of these tracks weren't written at all by the artists that were famous for performing them.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like, it was just kind of wild. I didn't realise that it was, you know, and it must have been that sort of thing where they would just turn up at the studio, right? And they'd be like, okay, this is the song we want you to perform.
Yeah. It was like that with, the Plantasia guy.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name. Mort Garson. There it is.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, he did loads of songwriting.
Yeah.
Like that, like pop songwriting, and he wrote loads of bangers. It's really, it blows my mind that there were like these people who would collaborate to write songs and then give them to other people.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know how that must feel if they're like Madonna's getting credit for your number one hit single. I guess you're getting loads of money, so it's fine. But
yeah,
it's
well, Prince was a really prolific sort of pop songwriter, wasn't he? Because he wrote "Nothing Compares to You" for Sinead O'Connor, I think, and then a couple of other tracks. But yeah, it's there was a recent one as well that really surprised me. But I'm not even going to bother to try and remember it because it's that thing, and when you put pressure on yourself to remember something, you just forget everything that ever existed.
I barely even remember who I am when that happens.
Yeah.
I do. Oh no, that just happened to me. I tried to remember what I was going to say, and I blue screened. I
was just going to say another cool fact I found out. This is the first release on Charisma Records.
Yeah.
who had quite a lot of seminal releases on that label. But it's I tried to look up what a lot of the other members done afterwards, and I think a few of them were involved in a few notable projects. But one of my favourite facts was the track Sympathy was actually a #1 hit in Italy and France.
Yeah, they did much better in Europe than they did in the UK, and I wonder why that is. Maybe it's the voice, and maybe like the lyrics weren't as accessible to a UK audience. I don't know. I'm really curious as to why they did so well there and not here, because they're a brilliant band. Like the vocals, I think there's a lot. I don't know. I just feel like they could have developed differently, given a different set of circumstances.
Yeah. Have you listened to any of their other albums or other work?
I have, but this is the one that I wanted to bring because I think I don't know why, but I think Beautiful Scarlet is very different to that other songs, and that song in particular kind of makes the album for me. I think if that song wasn't on it, I wouldn't enjoy it as much because his vocals just are so striking. There's something so strikingly sad about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I like that track because I feel like the music was allowed to breathe a bit more on that track as well, because I like how the kind of interspersing like the drum fills with like a bit of key work, and then I think the bass is allowed to shine a bit more on that track as well. But overall, I was actually really quite impressed with this album. I enjoyed it massively.
Amazing. I'm always happy to hear that. I think from Rare Bird we can fly to the next album.
Nice.
It's quite meta of me. It's Car Bomb Meta 2016. Please send my graduate degree in the post if you think I deserve one right now. So it's the third album by the American band Car Bomb. The album was produced by Gojira's Joseph Duplantier.
Yes.
Yes.
And he, I think he guests on a track as well. So he provides vocals for the track, backing vocals for the track "The Oppressor."
He does.
He does his classic bellow. This is probably this album was when I first started to take. Wow, easy for me to say. That started to sound like a Car Bomb riff there, wasn't it? But start to take notice of Car Bomb as a band because, I feel like this album is like a fully fledged realization of some ideas and sounds and stylistic choices they were pursuing on the previous albums, because the song lengths on the previous albums are a lot shorter than the tracks on this album, and I feel like this is them kind of presenting their sound in a kind of this is us in our this gonna sound so cheesy, but in our final form kind of thing. And it's and production wise it actually sounds really good. Like I think Joe's done a great job because the guitars and the riffs sound fucking massive. And in many ways, this album shares a lot of similarities to the last album we're reviewing today as well, the Frontier album.
Yeah.
And I do know that I think a couple of members of Car Bomb guested on Frontier's first album.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That is sick.
I think Frontier are quite big on getting people to guests for a lot of their some of their tracks, which we'll get into a little bit on there when we're reviewing that album. But no, it's I think in many ways, like this album kind of made the scene kind of stand up and take notice of like the mathcore scene. And it's interesting because I always thought, me personally, I thought mathcore was such a stupid term. Like I could never really get my head around why it was labeled mathcore. I know got the whole thing with the polyrhythms and the technical aspect of guitar work. Like I get that, it makes sense, but like the term itself sounds stupid, if you know what I mean.
I imagine you like that meme with a woman doing algebra and she's like looking confused when you're thinking about mathcore. It's just like Floyd thinking about mathcore. There's just loads of graphs and Pythagorean things going on. I honestly don't know why. I guess like you got to count mathily when you're playing this kind of music and do some maths in your head, or maybe it's like, I guess, more mathematical than usual 4/4 music, verse, chorus, etc. I don't know, and frankly, I am happy to remain ignorant if it means I don't know where I'm going with that. Feel free to cut that out because it's shit. Shit. Yeah, I think mathcore is it's an interesting term. Maybe someone can actually us and fill us in the YouTube comments.
Yeah.
Yeah. Feel free to, we're actually asking for some input. Please give us your opinion on this matter, internet. Thank you.
I'll give a little background on the band. So there's a band from Long Island, New York, who have a great metal scene in general. You got Michael Daferna on vocals, Greg Kubacki on guitars, John Modell on bass, and Elliot Hoffman on drums.
Nice.
What was your overall take of the album anyway? Is this the first time you'd listened to this, or had you listened to this before?
I have been a fan of Carbon for many years.
Nice.
I like Carbon very much. I was huge on Gent in like 2011 when Misha Mansour was doing his thing, and naturally I grew and matured like a small tree into liking this kind of music, into the heavier, dirtier, angrier, much more kind of Black Sheep Wally at times, Carbon, Botch, things like that. Anything that sounds like an explosion is something I like. So I've been listening to them for a while, not in the way that I would be able to wear their shirt and then get gatekeeped very well, because I kind of don't retain that kind of information very well. I just know I like them a lot.
Yeah, name 5 songs, poser.
Smoke on the Water. the beat.
Smoke on the Water live.
Smoke on the Water remastered. Smoke on the Water remix. There you go. That's 4 of the 5. I will say one other guest on this album is Frank Mullen.
My man, Frank Mullen.
From Suffocation.
From Suffocation, yeah. He performs vocals on the track. Sets.
Indeed.
Yeah. I just want to talk a little bit about Suffocation, if I may. Do you know what? Roadrunner used to be known as more of like a death metal sort of label before they became like a big player with bands like Slipknot and Killswitch, and I think Trivium run Roadrunner for a while. But, cheers, thanks, lad. But they, in like the early 2000s, they'd done these double pack reissues of loads of classic death metal bands that used to be on their labels. They'd done one for Obituary, then a Suffocation one, a Gorguts one, a Pestilence one. And I bought the Suffocation double album, so it was Effigy of the Forgotten and Pierce from Within. And like that was like one of the first real death metal albums I ever owned, and like his vocals on that album are just unreal. It's one of the first people to use like the super guttural vocal styles, because like Chuck had extreme vocals, but he was more kind of like mid to high range and kind of yelpy. But like Frank Mullen is just an absolute fucking G in the scene, and I just always love it when I hear his vocal in anything, even if it's in a guest track. But no, it's. I think his vocals really add to the track as well, because with a lot of like mathcore sort of releases, the vocals can be, and I think it fits the style, but it can be a bit one-dimensional at times. Like they all kind of have that similar cadence to them. It's a bit like a Jens Kidman from Meshuggah. It's kind of like just really hyper-aggressive, almost kind of like a one-tone kind of like yell or scream that permeates throughout most of the albums, and that's quite a common thing in a lot of mathcore bands. So it's great to hear a bit of vocal variety on this album as well with the guest vocalists.
Yeah, I think it's bloody fantastic. I remember the first time I listened to these guys. I was discovering like Khanate or Khanate, however you say them.
Oh yeah.
So I was like trying to find the dirtiest. I was like going through YouTube, trawling through like Paul Tool videos and shit, and trying to find the craziest stuff I can. And I found these guys, and I love the weird song titles like Nonagon. And Cenotaph, which I thought was about for a reference, but I'm sure it probably isn't, because it's just a word. And I think the lyrics are about like crabs or some shit, which is pretty funny. And yeah, like there is a lot of variation on this. It's different to a lot of other bands, and when I do group them in with other bands, it's not bands that sound the same, because like they're doing their own thing, and I like that. They definitely have influenced like bands like Pupil Slicer, of course, and Frontera, who we'll get to. And I really like them. They're kind of like, these guys are going to be the rare, well, not the Rare Bird, because Rare Bird one is successful, but they're going to be like the 70s prog bands of this genre. I think in 20 years time, what fucking weird mathematical quantum metal is going to be happening.
Do you know, I think you have hit the nail on the head there, because to be honest, they are one of those bands, from what I could remember anyway, so I could be wrong, the first started incorporating a lot of the strange kind of weird pinch harmonic techniques, and just weird sort of wah-wah and just crazy guitar effects.
Yeah, whammy.
Just totally sound like, they just totally sound like someone like feeding like a guitar through like a fucking modem or something.
Oh my god, it's dial-up metal.
Yeah, dial-up core. But no, you're right, because like I feel like that is something that's become really a big thing and prominent in the scene, especially like the core kind of crossover scene at the moment, with bands like Code Orange and Vane as well, another band. They have a great album called Aerozone, which is like really fucking quite groundbreaking. And I think it's not, and those bands have kind of taken a sound similar to this, and haven't been afraid to incorporate something which was previously seen as the bastard child of the metal scene, which is elements of new metal, which were like much maligned for many years in the scene, or like in like the actual metal scene. But now I think it's getting to a point where people are not afraid to incorporate some more kind of new elements to their music. But no, I definitely feel like Car Bomb were one of the first bands to kind of, in the modern era anyway, incorporate a lot of really cool and sort of just bizarre sort of riffs. There's, like I said, it's really polyrhythmic. Like, obviously there's a Meshuggah influence there. Like, anybody listen to this who have listened to any Meshuggah song before, like, can see that there's an obvious, like there's a comparison there. But I think it's taken that, because Meshuggah can be somewhat too mechanical at times, I think, for some people. Like, I enjoy it personally, but they're taking it and melding it with elements of like that proto-metalcore that was really popular in the late 90s and early 2000s, popularized by bands like Botch or Vision of Disorder or Will Haven, who I'm going to mention in the Frontier review as well. And so like there's more elements of core in this, and like there's some clean vocal passages that sound a bit like Tim Williams from Vision of Disorder as well. It's kind of like an element of grunge to the clean vocal sort of cadence at times. And yeah, it's just some really, I can understand why someone would listen to this and be totally turned off by it, because there's a lot of shit going on. But I personally love it.
I love it.
And it fucking really translates well live as well. Like, I saw them play at the Kentish Town Forum with Gojira and Code Orange, and
nice.
it was just what a mental gig that was. And I remember they played the track Black Blood, and that's got a really sick kind of like breakdown like riff in the middle that just totally it just went off. Basically,
nice.
Everyone lost their shit.
I'm well jealous. It's interesting you talk about Meshuggah, because Meshuggah was the first band shirt I ever bought.
No, really?
I was like 14, 15 years old.
Oh,
I bought
nice.
it from HMV, and it was really expensive. Or maybe it was like one of those shops in Camden where all the band shirts are like £30. And I bought, I can't remember, I think it was Obscene, the shirt. I still have it somewhere. And I used to I loved this shirt. And I was a huge Meshuggah fan. And then I just stopped listening to Meshuggah, because I was listening more to like this kind of music, because I love the mechanical aspects of Meshuggah, but then it was too easy to listen to, if that makes sense. Like, I knew I could feel the songs in a way where I kind of like would zone out, not because they were boring necessarily, but because I wasn't excited by what was coming next, because I kind of felt it was almost predictably the way it was, like you say, mechanical. But whereas these guys, the chaos is less mathematical and more kind of like, I guess like the darkness that is somewhat present in the like song construction, which is more like the chaos of disorder and horror in the world, I guess, which is why I like the Frontier album so much. I keep talking about it, but I think they're all linked in ways. Do you ever listen to a band called Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum?
Never even heard of them.
Okay. We'll check them out later.
I'll check them out.
Yeah, check them out. I think I haven't listened to them in a few years, but it's the same kind of like chaotic sleepover energy. Do you know what I mean? Where you have like 50 kids at a sleepover and they all go fucking mental. It's that kind of music. Yeah.
Yeah. It's do you know what? I don't think I ever went to a sleepover, like a proper like.
I did once or twice. They were really weird.
I just liked my own bed too much. I think if I did get invited, I probably just turned it down.
I wasn't allowed. My parents genuinely thought I'd be murdered.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, there's always a probability of that in London, let's be honest.
Pretty much, yeah, unfortunately. But child murder aside, this album is fantastic. I think, it's definitely going to be one of those albums that people will say they're inspired by when they're doing their own bands and music. I would be unsurprised if Frontiera like this band. And yeah, it's got a star-studded cast as well. I really respect this album a lot.
Yeah, and you know what? I think you touched on another interesting point there again, talking about like how you kind of progressed away from listening to Meshuggah. And I think that's just kind of what happens when you get a band that's a pioneer of a sound.
Yeah.
You can kind of see that parallel for a lot of thrash bands, like a lot of people that are into like the Big Four, or like, I feel like But actually, no, that's probably a bad example because I feel like people who are fans of the big four,
Don't listen to anything else.
yeah, they just stay fans of those bands for the rest of their life and just ignore everything else.
Like,
but
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like maybe Cannibal Corpse might be a better example.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of people's first death metal band. And then, then you find out that there's other death metal bands who are like mixing other subgenres or doing other interesting things. So there's a lot of people that never really go back to Cannibal Corpse.
It's like your first partner. It's like your first girlfriend or boyfriend. They're really great, but there was you hadn't grown, you didn't know yourself yet, and then you kind of grew apart. They were lovely, very nice, but just you don't have that extra bit of pizzazz there. You don't have that chaotic riff with the love you have for that person. So you've got to move on and you develop, but you always look back fondly on those sunny days with that person. But anyway, yeah, I think Car Bomb are that girlfriend/boyfriend for a lot of bands that will be coming up in the next 10, 20 years. Just like, I think it's interesting actually, for death metal, I think a lot of us will still listen to Death or like Bolt Thrower or something like that. But I think those are like exceptions that prove the rule, like Carcass, for example, because they're always reinventing themselves too.
Yeah, I think that is just testament to how good those bands are, because I think they transcend the genre. Like I wouldn't even consider Death a death metal band, not past the first two albums anyway, really. Okay. Just because there's elements there. Don't get me wrong, they are a death metal band.
They're called Death.
Yeah, but it's but you know what I mean. Like those last few albums are like so transcendental of music, I would say. Like I feel like there's a lot of things. Like a lot of people have a really quite deep spiritual connection to a lot of that music and
spiritual meaning. Sorry.
I think I read it there. What are they doing? Oh no, that's what I read. Apparently, I think DTA are going to be going on tour, touring that album in full.
Oh, nice.
At some point next year, so that'd be kind of cool.
That would be really cool. I added Steve DiGiorgio on Facebook, and I'm too shy to say anything to him. But his profile picture is like a pair of sandals or something, and it's really strange.
Of course, yeah. That's the first one I noticed when he was playing with DTA. I was like, this guy's not got any shoes on. I don't know why I noticed, but I remember you're quite fond of his fretless bass, aren't you?
I am very fond of his bass, and that's where that fondness ends. Not that I dislike him, I just don't know him. I just didn't want to sound like I'm fond of anything apart from his... Okay, anyway. Speaking of bass, the bass on this album is fantastic.
Yeah, I feel like, you know what I mean? It's when it comes to like an album this kind of all over the place in a good way, it's the rhythm section has to be so tight to keep it all together, because it's just that fine line between sort of like musical chaos and just utter like cacophonous just noise.
Yeah.
And I feel like the drums and the bass are so interlocked, they're so tight and locked in so well that they really do such a good job of just like keeping everything, keeping the groove as well, because there's actually a hell of a lot of groove on this album.
That's what I love about it, it's groovy.
Yeah.
I love that groove. Yeah.
And I feel like this, and same with the Frontier album, if there wasn't that element of groove,
it wouldn't be as good.
Yeah, and it would be so much more unlistenable. Like, I think a lot of people would think that this music is quite unlistenable as it is, because I think that the groove isn't something that's necessarily that discernible to somebody that hasn't listened to something similar to this before. Like, say if you hadn't listened to Meshuggah before and went straight into Car Bomb, you'd be like, whoa, what the fuck? But I feel like anyone who's listened to Meshuggah has got a good foundation or level of expectation as to that would allow them to get into the riffs that are presented here.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is totally accurate. Maybe if you like listen to Meshuggah and then you put on some Portal and then you listen to this, maybe you'd get a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, Portal is just, I don't blame anybody for not getting that, because that's some pretty impenetrable shit. I mean, I love it personally.
Yeah.
It's I need to listen to the new Portal album. It was a double album, so it kind of put me off a bit.
Yeah, I think Portal, I can listen to like 20 minutes of Portal, and I put it down for like 2 years. Yeah. What was that band? Fuck Pig. I remember them being quite impenetrable as well. I've not listened to them for a while, so I don't know if it's the same.
I don't know if I've listened to Fuck Pig on record. I've definitely seen them live, because they played one Damnation.
Were they good live?
Yeah, they're quite good. It was I was quite near the back, because as you know in Damnation, you've got to fucking plan it like a military sort of like fucking strategy to get to the stage you want to in time. So I think I was just popping my head in, and because and I think they had Dave from Anal Nathrak performing vocals with them.
That's really cool.
At this point as well. At that point. But yeah, no, they seemed all right. It was one of those things where sometimes Damnation could be a bit of a blur, because there's so much going on and I'm just trying to get from stage to stage. A lot of the times, it's one of the few festivals where like I'm just busy watching bands and planning to get good spots for the next band. But yeah, they seem pretty good.
Yeah, they're all right. They're also impenetrably heavy, from what I remember.
But Dragged into Sunlight were pretty impenetrably heavy, to be fair.
Are they slow?
No, they're quite, I'd say mid to fast paced.
Okay.
But they've got quite cool kind of like stage get up as well. They do that thing when they play with their backs to the crowd. And it's like a lot of smoke and sort of like pulsating strobe lights and stuff.
Okay.
Which is
When you said pulsating, I was like, where is this?
Where am I going with this?
That's why their backs are to the audience. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
But it's going back to this album quickly. There's a few tracks that I just want to touch on quickly. The track Cenotaph as well. It was it's quite good because it's more of like a mid to a slow pace sort of track. I like how they change up the dynamics and the tempo of the album in a few tracks. And there's some moments on Cenotaph where he sounds a bit like Dax Riggs with the cleans.
Oh, that's such an interesting comparison.
Yeah,
I need to re-listen to that, and yeah.
Yeah, and there's a few Chino moments as well, I think. So Chino Moreno from Deftones. I think it's funny. You often forget how influential a band Deftones are. I feel like even if it's not directly discernible in the band's sound, like there's some influence there somewhere for a lot of people who kind of grew up around about the sort of 90s. Like they were one of those kind of seminal bands, a bit like System, where like you can't really lump Deftones as a new metal band, like in the same way you can't really do that with System because it's kind of doing them a bit of a disservice because really new metal. When you think of new metal in its derogatory sense, you're going to think of a band more like Limp Bizkit, really. With like that's not a knock on Limp Bizkit, but I'm saying they've got all the tropes that would be negatively associated with what new metal was all about.
Rightfully so.
But yeah, Cenotaph was a great track. I really love the track Black Blood, which I think was one of their kind of like singles or tracks they were heavily promoting around about the time of the album's release. And the opening track as well, I thought was great.
From the Dust of This Planet.
Yeah, I thought it was just a fantastic way to start the album. I like the fact that they don't overuse all the weird kind of like all the whammy stuff and all the weird pinch harmonics. It's like it's there, but it doesn't detract from the overall musicianship of the album.
I think that is something that a lot of people fall into a trap of being like, I've got this kick-ass pedal, so I'm going to use it for the sake of using it. And they'll like kind of sometimes overdo it, but I do like how it doesn't. I mean, there are times you're like, what the fuck is that sound? How they do that? But it's it's not in a like, this is intruding. It's this is part of the fabric of the music. It's so like, it's so intricate. I really enjoy listening to it, and each time I'm gonna like pick out a new layer or like a new interaction with the instruments. And I have respect for people who can write that kind of music. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, no, because it's kind of mind-boggling at times, and I think I remember I actually read a few reviews of the album before I listened to it because I was somewhat familiar with some of the earlier Car Bomb albums. But like I said, it was because the songs were in shorter sort of bursts. I was kind of used to that. So I used to listen to a lot of grindcore, and that was kind of like the modus operandi for a lot of grindcore bands was like short bursts of really crazy shit. So it was interesting to hear a band with tracks that were about sort of 3 to 5 minutes in length and seeing how they could prolong those ideas and sustain it over a longer sort of playing time. And the song Nonagon I really love as well. It's got a really catchy riff.
That's my favourite song on the album.
Oh, really? Is it? It's probably my favourite song overall. Oh. Yeah.
Snap.
Just super cool. Like some of the pinch harmonic things are even a bit similar to what Gojira do. They have a similar thing with the harmonics on their albums. And then it even has like a kind of like a robotically delivered vocal passage that kind of is similar to what Thomas Harker used to do with Meshuggah.
Yeah.
On some of the earlier albums. It's not like digitally processed in the way that Meshuggah used to do it, but it was quite cool. I thought that was just it's got a really good solo on it as well, but just a really good track.
Mastodon did the digital robot voice thing too. They do that on Blood Mountain or Leviathan? I think Leviathan. No, Blood Mountain.
There was. See, Mastodon are a weird one because it's especially now that Brand does vocals as well, because literally every member of the fucking band is contributing like main vocals. So it could be a bit hit or miss for me sometimes because
I don't like the new stuff. Anything after Blood Mountain is overproduced for me.
Yeah.
And it's like they've smoothed the sound so much that it's lost the heaviness that I really enjoyed in the early music.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. Yeah. It's I actually didn't mind Emperor of Sand. I thought that was a decent.
There's some good riffs on that.
Some great riffs and some great tracks. But yeah, my favorite album of theirs will always be Leviathan. I thought that was, and it was. I just loved the. I can't remember what was the. I remember there was a Metal Hammer reviewed it at the time, and it was a really weird. They had a really weird summary of the review. They said it was like Metallica meets Neurosis had a child with Clutch. I was like,
what? That doesn't sound anything like Mastodon.
No, I know. So I was thinking, because Leviathan was the first one I was listening to, so I went into it and I was like, what the fuck were they talking about?
Yeah, there's none of those elements are present in their music.
But I listened to it because of that summary, and that was the sticker on the album. I was like, what? I was like, I need to listen to this because this sounds like way out there. And I was like, nah, that doesn't sound anything fucking like it.
You know, it's funny because those three bands, that would be like my least favourite combination of musical things ever. Because I hate those bands all so much. Like,
What, you hate Neurosis?
Oh no, I don't hate Neurosis. I forgot about Neurosis. I blanked them out because my hatred eclipsed.
Fair enough.
My hatred of Clutch and Metallica is so great I couldn't see anything else in that moment.
But you know why they said that? I realised because is it Steve Von Till or is it the guests? No, it's tip of my tongue. Scott Kelly has guested on every Mastodon album.
That makes sense. There's definitely Scott Kelly vibes.
And Neil Fallon does a guest vocal on, I think, the track Blood and Thunder. Yeah,
that's a really good track. I love the Slick Leg guitar lick. Is it Slick Leg? It's like
I think that's I think that's what track is that again? I'm going to put the track listing up.
Let's do a Mastodon review. Sorry, Car Bomb.
I've got Aqua Demetra in my head, but it's not that.
Oh, yeah, no.
It's, I'll tell you which one it is. But no, yeah, I think that's why they decided to say it was, it's like Neurosis and
what was
Neurosis? Neurosis and Clutch mixed together just because both of them were guested on the album. But it was the Megalodon.
Oh, yes. Of course it was. Silly. Yeah, as you can see, I'd be terrible at wearing band shirts in public because I barely remember my favourite band name songs. They don't even have a song called Slick Leg on this album. I don't know where There's a song. There is a Mastodon. Look, okay, I'm Googling this. Mastodon and Slick, and hopefully it's not going to be some weird, like, whale penis. Mastodon Slick Leg, yeah. Mastodon Slick Leg, 2001 vinyl, Reptilian Records. What the fuck? How do I remember this?
I've never even heard of this.
No, I'm not familiar with this track.
Yeah, this was on my iPod when I was a teenager. They have free tracks on it. Slick Leg, Thank You for This, and Deep Sea Creature. I'm so cult that I remember Mastodon EP subtitles. I'm not cult. I just somehow have assimilated this into my consciousness. It's a really good song. Have you not listened to it?
The first ever Mastodon release, the Slick Leg EP. I didn't even know this existed.
It's good. It's really good. Yeah, check it out.
I'll check that out, yeah. I just thought Remission was their first release.
Yeah.
And the style listed as math rock, so it is relevant. Just saying.
There you go.
Slick Leg.
But yeah, it's... oh, God, I just want to say about the Carbon album quickly. What a filthy guitar tone. I mean, it is such a good album.
Disgustingly good.
So good. And it's just... I can't say enough good things about the album, so I'm just going to stop there.
This album is like when you've got a bag of fried chicken that no longer has the fried chicken in it, and you can see all the grease, and you can feel the fried chicken sitting inside your stomach, and you're like, oh, that's dirty. You know what I mean? It's that kind of like dirty but good stuff.
Yeah, I do know what you mean. I don't like fried chicken, though.
I don't either, but I know what you...
Yeah.
Like,
Sometimes you crave it, though, innit? Just fried
it's
food.
It's so weird. I am disgusted by fried food, and yet somehow part of me is entranced by it. Anyway... Let's move on to Oxidized by Frontierer. This is going to be one of my albums of the year.
God damn, you heard it here first.
It's freaking amazing. I fucking love it. I listened to this and it was perfect. It was absolutely... It was like Black Sheep Wool meets Car Bomb. So it was, absolute Nina material.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it's really fucking heavy.
Yes.
Oppressively heavy.
I love it.
Yeah.
I feel so oppressed by this album in the best possible way. It's like consensual oppression in the musical form. There's so many songs as well. There's 16 songs. And I read most of the lyrics. I was very tired. I read most of the lyrics. All the lyrics are just kind of like the kind of poetry I would have cried over as a teenager. The kind of shit I was writing as like an angsty 19-year-old that I would still low-key write if I'm sad. So I love it. It's all really like poetic and yet also heavy. The lyrics aren't just like a car I don't know, exploding cars or
Yeah.
space crabs. Not that those things are bad, they're cool. I write about stuff like that too. But this is really interestingly kind of semi-confessional and veiled in metaphor whilst being horrifyingly heavy.
Sound like you were naming Gojira songs there for seconds, like flying whales, exploding cars.
Yes. I'm not. I don't know much about Gojira. Just that I like whales.
One thing I watched an interview with Pedram, who is the mastermind behind the project, and he was saying that, well, one thing I noticed was there's a track on their first album, Unloved, which is called Unloved and Oxidized.
Oh.
So, and from what I've gathered is he was in the process of writing some of the music for this album while still finishing up the previous one, Unloved.
Nice.
So it is a continuation of the first album. I haven't listened to the first album before, but I feel like this is a far more kind of like focused and frenzied release that is probably going to put them on the map, I think.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I think that it's been a very long time since I've listened to something which has taken me aback. Which I think the first track I listened to, because I remember it dropped and I was just clicking on Spotify. You know, I had none of the track listens in order. It's just like suggestions. So I think I listened to the track Corrosive Wash first, and I was just like, fucking hell. I was like, just caught me off guard. I was like, this is just...
That happened to me.
Yeah.
I was on my way to work. I just went on Spotify. I couldn't decide what to listen to. Put on my playlist and it was like, oh, here's this track. And I didn't even know it had released. I immediately sent it. I think I sent it to you. I sent it to Shem. I was like, this is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
And you guys were like, yeah, it's new. We should review it. And I was like, holy fuck, there's a whole new album of music like this to dig into. It was delicious. It was such a cool way of discovering them. Yeah.
It's... And as I was saying when we were talking about the Car Bomb review, like I know the first album features, I believe it was, I'll get their names up so I don't fuck it up. It was Mike and Greg, so the guitarist and vocalist of Car Bomb, featured on the last album. This album's got quite a few interesting features as well. You've got Grady from Will Haven.
Yeah.
Performs vocals on This Magnetic Drift. Which is cool. Will Haven are one of those bands, similar to Vision of Disorder, who always kind of bang on about, who were really kind of ahead of their time and were doing a lot of shit that was kind of underappreciated, and I still think goes quite underappreciated, much in the same way a band like a Sixth as well, for example.
Yeah.
Like I still don't think they get nowhere near as much credit for their contribution to this scene, like the math scene, whatever you want to call it. So I think... yeah, and I feel like the band is kind of paying homage and kind of, you know, I'm glad that they've featured musicians from this period, because it's kind of like saying, like, you know, that if it wasn't for musicians from that era, then perhaps this genre wouldn't have developed in the way it has. And they've got another track which has I don't know the vocalist's name. It's got a guest from the vocalist from Iron Dissonance.
He's called Kevin McCaughey.
Ah, there you go.
And then the vocals were recorded by Dominic Grimard. Well done, Dominic Grimard. You did a great job.
Nice.
That was on the track Removal of the Copper Iris and the Lightning Pill.
What a cool name as well.
I don't know why, but it makes me think of the contraceptive coil.
That's what I was thinking as well.
Okay, so I'm not alone in that. I wonder if it is actually about that. Yeah, because I thought that was a really interesting name. I like it.
But have you ever listened to Iron Dissonance before?
I haven't. No, are they like this? Are they good?
Yeah, no, not as mental, I would say, for lack of a better term. But but it's Iron Dissonance, one of those bands who were kind of coming up at the same time. It's like Dillinger and Sixth that had, but they also have some really cool shit going on in their music. I think it'd be worth checking out at some point. I won't go on about them too much.
I will do.
But they've got an album called Breathing is Relevant, or Breathing is Irrelevant, I think. That's really good.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, there's so much going on in this album. At times it was hard to kind of discern between tracks, because I listened to it once, just straight through, just to try and kind of like take it in without being like overly analytical. And there was times where I couldn't tell when some tracks were ending and some tracks were beginning.
Yeah, I just let it wash over me. Yeah.
And I listened to it again, just kind of like trying to analyze each track, and it's just so much shit going on. I love the way they're using kind of what appear to be using digital effects to enhance a lot of the strange guitar work and guitar tricks that are going on in the album.
It's like Igor.
Yeah. It's very similar to Igor, actually. Yeah, I never made that connection at all. But it's kind of just like Car Bomb on crack.
It's Crack Bomb.
Crack Bomb.
Yeah, love that. I love again, very similar to Carbon, but it's like Carbon has had a child spawn and it has grown and developed into something even more complex.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like mutated into this, and it's fantastic. It's really, I love that these guys are, on the same island as us. Hopefully that means that we get to see them play.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. I mean, I think I remember when I was looking up some stuff about them, they do have a few shows booked, but I'm guessing it's around their neck of the woods because they're from, well, they're based in Scotland, I think, primarily.
Yeah, hopefully they can come down here at some point and we can read them some cards. You're welcome on the podcast, Frontiera people. That'd be lovely.
It's do you know what though? It's for as crazy as the music on this album is, I actually think that there's quite a lot of dynamics in it still.
Yeah, I was going to say this too.
Yeah, and that it's not like it's similar to the Carbon album. It's not too much, and there's still discernible groove. There's still a lot of groove. But yeah, it's just I think it's quite a balanced musical listen. I
found it weirdly really easy to listen to.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are saying it's like really dense. They don't find it easy. It's punishing. But I really find it really easy. Yeah. I don't know why. There's something about this really catches me in a way that I haven't felt for a really long time when it comes to listening, especially to new music. Yeah. It's quite rare that I'll listen to a band and just get them the first time and just be like, yes, this is like tickling my ears in just the right way. And I did find that there's a lot of variation in like the form and meter of how the vocals are delivered, how the lyrics are written. It's all really well curated. It's not just been shat out.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like I think it's like there's a lot of dynamics on this album, and when there's like they're not gonna pummel you for 3 minutes straight with like strange bleeps and like low end riffs. Like there's a lot of like the last track on the album, for example, is titled Hope, sort of relevantly enough. Actually, is probably the most melodic track on the album. It's got like kind of finishes on a melodic and kind of like almost anthemic note. It's got some quite soaring guitars. And some quite good clean vocal work as well. And it's just that track actually reminds me. Have you ever listened to a band called Blood Has Been Shed?
No, I have not.
So Killswitch Engage. They've got the two vocalists. They had Jesse's the first one, and Howard's is the second one. Blood Has Been Shed was Howard's first band.
Okay.
And they're kind of also like a mathy metalcore sort of band. And it was actually they released one album. I think they released two albums, but one album that was kind of received some sort of critical acclaim called Spirals, and it's actually a really good album. And it's also kind of similar to this in the sense there's a lot of like polyrhythmic kind of riffage going on, and it's just like really. But yeah, that's what this track kind of reminded me of in the way they blended the melody with like a lot of the mathematical riffage, for lack of a better term.
It's really interesting that you see like this element of hope in the album, because when I first listened to it I was like, wow, this is so depressing. Great. But in a good way, really. But then I was reading the lyrics, and like again I was looking at the song names, and I did feel this element of hope within this like world of shit that they're bringing up in a good way. I keep everything I'm saying is a compliment, trust me. But I've done the thing where I get some lyrics. This is from Corrosive Wash, I think probably my favorite song, just because it was the first one I heard. So like I immediately was just, this song perks me up and makes me happy now. But I got this element from I just took a few lines from it because I did feel that element of hope, that element of like there is so much fucking pain and hurt and trouble, but it's okay, just keep going. So these are lyrics. Bruised at the water's edge, you got to remove skin if you want to live. Blind from its acrid waves, I'm no more alive in this human state. Don't you give up tonight, don't you give up and die. Isn't that lovely?
Yeah, no, it's there's an element of kind of hope in that.
Yeah, it's like horrible. Like you got to literally take your skin off if you want to keep going. Like the world will grind you down, your skin will get ripped off you, but it's okay. Just keep going. Yeah. You have no skin. You're just muscle and tendon and bone, and you're scraping yourself along, but you're okay. Just keep going. Yeah. It's like horrifying ASMR.
It's okay if you get flayed. Yeah, it's fine.
Don't worry about it. You still got some skeleton in you. Have some hope.
That reminds me of this. It was some stupid, like it was either green text or something I saw on Reddit once, and it was like talking about aliens discovering human life for the first time. It's like, yeah, they're these weird bags of sad meat.
Oh my god. There's a Star Trek episode. It's like the second or third Star Trek episode where they're in TNG Next Generation, where like they're like flying off into space, and they meet these like insanely powerful like 4-dimensional beings who are like they call humans ugly bags of mostly water. And that's all they use. That's the term they just use to refer to the humans all the time.
Yeah.
And they're like just talking into the air, and they're like, ugly bags of mostly water. You are stupid.
That's amazing.
You are a stupid race.
It's pretty accurate, to be fair.
It is very accurate, yeah. But we are definitely sad bags of meat. I feel that, and I concur.
What are the tracks on this album that I really like? Oh god, I mean, I like the whole album. So I was channeling Michael Caine there for a bit.
I dig
Weren't
it.
supposed to blow the bloody doors off.
I think we should just do the podcast in your Michael Caine voice from now on. I can't do a Michael Caine impression. I'm not going to subject anyone to that.
The best way to do a Michael Caine impersonation is you say the words "my cocaine" and it sounds like Michael Caine saying his own name.
My cocaine. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm now my cocaine. That's all I can do.
I really like the track "Swans."
Svivans.
That's the Savavans.
Svivans. I was like, is this about the band?
Well, I thought it might have been a reference to the band.
Yeah.
One of the things I really like on this album, which I haven't mentioned so far, is I really like the industrial aspect
Yeah.
on the album. There's a lot of industrial elements, kind of reminiscent of bands like Godflesh and an early Berserker to me. Like, I really love that first Berserker album just because of how raw
I love that album.
and just weird it is. But yeah, so like a lot of the drum patterns on this album, I really like the way they blend, because obviously there's a lot of blasting and typical metal drums being used, but there's also a lot of like techno beats and electronica style like beats going on, similar to do you ever listen to Ted Mole?
I kind of did many a year ago because of the Akakoka connection.
Yeah, so they're one of those bands. They were quite cool in the way they were blending like a bit of drum and bass even into that kind of like metal sound, which is, they were called like the death metal Slipknot, which I think was a bit of a disservice to them, because obviously Slipknot have got the whole turntable and some hip hop elements, but like I'd say it was more of an industrial sort of thing and an electronica style infusion of sounds. And I think this album kind of doing something similar with the drum beat and the rhythm section a lot of the time as well, which I think just gives it a cool flavour that kind of makes them stand out from a lot of the other bands, because it's a real mishmash of styles, but it works, and I think it lends to the oppressive nature to the music, because arguably what's more oppressive than the sound of grinding machines?
Exactly. We live in an industrial, late-stage capitalism society, and I can think of nothing more oppressive.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's really important, that point you make about, developing the kind of basic setup of a band, which is, drums, guitars, bass, vocals. Like the drums, I feel like a lot of bands, me included, like when I started, I was like, oh, okay, so it's supposed to sound like this. So the drums have got to be like this. Guitars have got to be like that, whatever. Like, you've got to have a standard setup. But I really like, for example, Rarebird, they don't necessarily have like a typical guitar setup. It's like dueling keys and everything else. And these guys as well, they're not like, well, we've got a drum kit, so we've got to use the drum kit the way you're supposed to, quotation marks, use a drum kit. Like, they're taking elements of, and this is kind of actually why I love Skindred live, is they use like weird sub bass shit. They like take it to the next level, and I think we miss out on a lot. Well, I don't know about but some bands miss out on like a whole world of sound that they can access to make themselves heavier from lighter music, what would be considered lighter music. Yeah,
you're 100% right. I kind of think maybe it stems from that weird kind of archaic view that metal is something that's pure and shouldn't really be melded with something that is an outside genre.
The irony.
Yeah.
Because where does metal come from?
I know.
Genre.
Yeah, I know, it's true.
Yeah.
Like but I've always been attracted to music that's not afraid to experiment. Like, even if it doesn't sound good, I just like to hear something different.
Yeah.
Like, like Zio and Ardor, for example. Their first album was just like I was saying when we reviewed that album, it reminds me of the first Berserker album, where there just a ton of weird ideas going on, and like most of it sticks.
Yeah, I think it's always really pleasurable to listen to a truly creative piece of art. Because that's what this is. This isn't a band just kind of doing it to go on tour and get drunk. They're like, clearly, they've put so much work into this. They've put more than just like the writing of the instruments. They've also done so much thinking about how the setup is going to be, what sounds they're going to use, like what emotionally they're going to channel into the music. Because there is definitely some emotion here.
Yeah.
Which I really dig. I don't dig that they're in pain necessarily if they are, but I love this element of like hope and hopelessness, which is definitely something that I think a lot of people can relate to after the past 2 years. So yeah, I think this is like a fantastic piece of work. I think it's definitely one of the good things that's come out of the pandemic, I guess.
Yeah, I think there's been quite a lot of good music. I think the frustration of it all has created a lot of people, or reignited a lot of people's creative spark. One thing I thought was interesting on this album, we mentioned Hope again, is they've got a track called Death /.
Yeah, they've got lots of slashes and things.
And then the last track is / Hope. So it's almost like that's a continuation of that track.
That's so clever.
It's like Death's the first part, maybe Hope was the second part.
Yeah.
So maybe there was a death a member of the band experienced that they've been going through. I don't know. I mean, there's been a lot of death happening as a result of everything going on in the last couple of years. So
there is grief in this album, 100%. Now you say it, I feel grief here. I'm feeling grief. I'm like dowsing for it. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point. And if the band want to make any comments, not necessarily about that because that's very personal, let us know. This is a fascinating album. I think there's a lot here that I don't know about yet that I'm going to discover, and I kind of like that.
Yeah, I think it's one of those albums, and I think the Carbon album is similar as well. That there's layers to it, and you listen to it a few times. I think something else will be revealed to you with each listen. So I look forward to like kind of digesting it a bit more and kind of seeing where I sit with it in a couple months' time. Like I know I still love the album, but I think it's a fantastic album.
Yeah.
And I've always had an obsession with things that sound ridiculously heavy. But like when I say ridiculously heavy, like for me, it has to have the emotional weight behind it as well.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it just sounds sterile and kind of soulless, which is, predominantly most death metal. Because let's be honest, a lot of death metal is a lot of either frat guys or nerds.
Yeah.
Just writing stupid gore lyrics. And, like there's not much, and I love it. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm a massive, massive death metal fan.
Yeah, me too.
From a technical perspective as well, I just love the way that
it sounds.
That they pursue extremity in a different manner through musical, like whether it be the speed, like how fast they can or how low they can growl and all that sort of shit. But but when it comes to things that have that emotional weight behind it, that's what real heaviness kind of is.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Kanate or Kanate, however you pronounce it. Like they're one of those bands where like, that was truly an unsettling listen the first time I ever listened to that album. And really makes you think, okay, there's some real shit being like spewed out on this record. And I kind of feel a similar thing when I listen to this album. And I was talking a little bit in the Carbon, when we were talking about the Carbon album, about like embracing certain like new metal aesthetics or sounds. And like there's times on this album where it sounds a bit like Korn. Just like some of the more quiet ambient parts have got like the guitar tone is very sort of Korn-esque and in a way that it's done in kind of like an earnest way, because like Korn, their later music kind of became a caricature of that sound. From what I've gathered, I've not listened to it too much. I could be wrong there, but it's something that is becoming prevalent now, and I think accepted in the community through bands like I was saying before, bands like Code Orange and Vane, and even Turnstile as well. In the way that Turnstile are incorporating loads of things that wouldn't have previously been accepted in that realm of music. Yeah. So I think it's really cool.
I think this is great. I think we've discovered so much cool new music this year. This is a fantastic kind of example of that. I think was Katie from Pupil Slicer saying that she worked with these guys when they were doing the album?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
She was saying she was a massive, massive fan of them. Well,
there you go. I can definitely hear the connection there. And I think those two bands will definitely work really well on a bill together.
That would be an insane bill.
Yeah, that would be really fun. So please make it happen, promoter. Any promoter who's listening, do the thing.
It already happened.
It already happened.
Katie told us the story.
Weren't we supposed to not say anything about that?
No, she said it on the podcast.
Okay. I don't remember. I just remember saying something by accident and accidentally doing a big reveal of a pupil slicer tour, and she was like, "No."
Wasn't as bad as my big reveal, which I'm obviously not going to say, but I'll remind you off camera.
Okay.
That was a bad one.
Yeah, we're very good at accidentally revealing things on this podcast. Except the fact that this is a fantastic bloody album, and all the albums we've reviewed today have kind of talked to each other across time, which I think is beautiful. And I've just got a message from Shem Lucas saying the guitarist of Frontierer produced and mixed the people.
Pick up a penguin.
Let me try again. The guitarist of Frontierer and nope. Let me try again. The guitarist of Frontierer produced and mixed the Pupil Slicer. I'm cursed. I can't say this.
See, this is normally what I do at the end, to just lose my mind and just struggle to. So I've just got a message from Shem saying that the guitarist of Frontierer produced and mixed the Pupil Slicer album.
No way!
So there you go.
That is awesome.
So you can see that there's a direct correlation between these bands. There's some shared kind of creativity going on there, which is cool.
There you go.
It's good to see the scene burgeoning.
Burgeoning. Why is that such a weird word? I don't know why that's such a stupid word. We've definitely lost our minds at this point. I think this is where we wander off into the desert of music and try and search for a new watering hole of good music bands to put in our ear holes. So feel free to comment, like, subscribe, support. Tell us what you'd like to hear from us. I hope you're all having a lovely time listening to our beautiful voices dripping like honey into your mind. So thank you for listening. See you soon.
Until next time.
Peace.